This is a scripted dialogue based on informal debates I've had with a number of conservative Christians. It's not verbatim because none of them want it to be recorded, but it does accurately reflect their responses to my criticisms of Christianity. I plan to post other such conversations, each covering one of the key issues by which one can decide whether Christianity is true or not. The dialogues consist of a composite of the people I talk to, so at times you'll find the Christian more congenial, at other times more antagonistic. First topic is science. I don't focus on evolution because I think the tennis match between the Bible says and science says often doesn't get anywhere. Rather, I focus on simpler, common sense issues. The pillars of the earth. Oh, wait a minute. You keep sidetracking me. Can you please answer the question? Is the earth set on pillars?
You have to understand there's different kinds of literature in the Bible. A lot of it is allegorical. There's a lot of figurative and symbolic language.
Oh, yeah, I hear that a lot. Whenever there's a problem in a passage, you claim it's symbolic language. I mean, I can accept that, say, with a talking snake, it's symbolic of the devil, figurative language, okay. But with pillars, even if it is symbolic language, it's wrongly symbolic. A pillar is symbolic of a pillar, a solid support structure. It's not symbolic of empty air.
A pillar is symbolic of a firm foundation.
Right, and the earth is not set on a firm foundation. It's set in midair, in gravity. Humans back then may have thought it's set on pillars, but God would know it's not, and he would not use misleading figurative language. If God says horses have 7 legs, I'm going to say, what? Huh? This isn't God talking. This alleged God doesn't know the nature of his own creation. Or if he says he is as fierce as a bunny, yeah, he's using figurative language, but the language he chose shows he does not know the nature of bunnies.
But gravity is a strong, solid force.
It's a strong force, but it's not a solid force. The earth is not held up by pillars. It's not set on a firm foundation. It floats in gravity.
Well, I think we're just going in circles. I think you're being way too literal here.
Yeah, I think you're being way too lenient here. Noah's Ark. You know the dragon-like monster in Job, the Leviathan? Do you have any idea what animal the Leviathan is?
Most people think it's talking about a whale.
Can't be a whale. Whales don't have legs. The passage mentions his limbs. A lot of Christians say it's the crocodile, but it can't be. The crocodile has a smooth stomach, not a jagged one. And crocodiles can and have been hunted for food, which the Bible says cannot be done with the Leviathan because he's so powerful.
Nobody knows exactly what the animal is.
I think it's just a made-up monster that never really existed, which is interesting to me because the whole context of that part of Job is God describing literal nature, the animals he created, in order to impress Job. Yet here is this fierce animal that nobody can identify. You see how this is one of my many reasons I don't trust the Bible? It's full of superstition instead of good science. Oh, before I forget, do you think the Noah's Ark story literally happened, that it was an actual event?
I do.
I don't. You really think 8 people can take care of like 14,000 animals on very rough seas in an enclosed space without ventilation for a full year? I say that is impossible.
It's not natural, I'll give you that.
That's what I think your ultimate defense has to be here, that, well, right, it's not natural, it must have been a miracle, a major miraculous intervention by God.
Yes. Yeah. In the story of the flood, it talks about the flood covering the whole earth, how it wiped out mankind except for Noah and his family.
Because mankind, all of mankind, deserved to drown?
Yes, because of the violence and sexual immorality and all the rest. Whether or not humans had covered every inch of the globe, I don't know. But I think the area where human beings were was completely destroyed by a flood.
So you're saying it could have been a local flood, a major local flood. I went down to Kentucky to see Ken Ham's giant Ark replica. When I talked to the staff down there, they agreed with me that it could not have been a local flood. Because if you look at the topography of that area, that valley, there is an outlet to the ocean. So water could not have built up that drastically in one area. And not everybody would have been drowned. People and animals would have just moved to higher ground or to another valley. So the creationist organization down there thinks it had to be a full global flood. And I agree. Biblically speaking, it had to be a global flood. Of course, personally, I think it's just a story. It's not a real historical event.
But again, the point of the Bible's teaching here is that mankind was wiped out because of its evil behavior. That's what it means by saying the waters covered the whole earth. Whether the water covered the entire physical globe is immaterial to me.
So the question of whether the flood described covered the entire globe or not doesn't matter to you?
What exactly happened, I'm not committed to one view or the other. Might have been the whole globe, might not have been, but it was a flood that wiped out all the people.
And the Chinese on the other side of the globe, they were all left alone by God? They were not drowned? Because they were not evil, like the people in the Middle East all were?
I can't answer that.
Can you answer how a wooden boat over 300 feet can be seaworthy when modern shipbuilders write that such a boat is not seaworthy? It falls apart. There's a limit of about 300 feet, beyond which the wood starts to twist too much. It starts leaking and eventually comes apart.
I wouldn't speculate on how the boat was built.
Again, you'd need God's miraculous help. Special wood, special design, and ventilation, magic ventilation, instead of the miles of ventilation a ship that size needs. I read one guy who wrote that, and this is a guy who knows all about ventilation on big ships, and he said Noah's Ark is impossible. And how can only 8 people take care of the poop of thousands of animals every day? So to me, it's a story. And it's a very bad story. This is a big point. It's a very bad story because it says everybody is evil. I'm not a big fan of the human race, but I know there are good people. And to think everybody is evil and deserves to drown, to me, is a seriously twisted worldview. There's an excellent video on YouTube where a guy who actually knows his science explains how Noah's flood is impossible. And here's one of the recent comments on that video. Quote, I've run a dog boarding, training, and rescue facility for 13 years, 70 plus dogs, 5 to 7 employees, including me. We have AC, sanitation, an abundant supply of water, cleaners, and regular medical care. We still have a very tough time keeping up with their needs. Noah's Ark is a joke. Ostriches, the nature of ostriches. You want to hear my favorite scientific contradiction in the Bible?
Sure.
Job 39:13-16. God describes ostriches as cruel and uncaring parents. But the scientific fact is that ostriches are fierce parents, very attentive to their chicks. But people back then were not as knowledgeable as zoologists are today. To the untrained eye or the primitive eye, some of ostrich behavior appears to be uncaring, but it's actually not. Like they may abandon their eggs, but they do that deliberately to lead predators away from the eggs and to chase them instead. So to me, this passage is proof that this is a human being talking, not God talking, because God knows better that ostriches are fierce parents.
Well, I would say that what is being communicated in Job and in many other places is God explaining something in a way that we can understand. So if what we observe is the cruelty of these animals, he's just describing what we observe. He's not making a scientific determination of the animal. He's saying, this is what you see. He's talking about things in a way that we would understand.
Yeah, I remember a guy I talked to years ago, I think he used the term phenomenological language, talking in terms of how we understand something, how things appear to us, not necessarily a scientific description. Like when we talk about the sun rising, as it appears to rise, when in fact it doesn't really rise, the earth rotates.
The point of God even mentioning the ostrich is not really to teach the nature of ostriches.
Oh, I don't know. It seems to me it is. It is. He's describing the nature of ostriches. He's not making some moral point using ostriches. I mean, the whole point of that section of Job is God telling Job how little Job knows compared to himself, God. So why would God repeat an error of man's, that ostriches are uncaring parents, when God knows better? That sabotages his whole point, it seems to me.
Let's see what the passage actually says. Job 39:16. She treats her young harshly as though they were not hers. Her labor is in vain without concern.
Yeah, see, right there. God says she is without concern, but she is concerned, very concerned, about the safety of her chicks. I've seen video how careful they are to protect their chicks when they go to drink water at a watering hole.
I read that passage and I see God is talking about the observed behavior of ostriches. People see ostriches not taking care of the eggs. That's what he is pointing out. He's not trying to teach and make a definitive description of the behavior of ostriches.
I don't know. If I were God, I'd carefully avoid repeating the errors of man, especially when I'm describing in detail my own creation in order to impress Job.
Well, if you were God, then you could do that.
Was this final comment a valid rebuttal to my statement? Or was it yet another deflecting, irrelevant truism? Miracles, the Red Sea parting. Like I said, I don't regard man as essentially evil, but essentially free to be either good or evil.
Look at Psalm 106, verse 6. We have sinned with our fathers. We have committed iniquity. We have done wickedly. The very next verse, verse 7. Our fathers in Egypt did not understand your wonders. They did not remember the multitude of your mercies, but rebelled by the sea, the Red Sea. So the Hebrews were brought out of Egypt, yet they didn't see God's hand. Right away they said to Moses, why did you bring us out here?
Right. Very quickly they grumbled about Moses' leadership. Very quickly they turned on him.
And Moses was like, guys, I just parted the Red Sea for you. What do you want?
Right. But you know what that tells me? It tells me that this supposed miracle of the parting of the Red Sea never really happened, because human beings don't do that. Experience a spectacular miracle and then very shortly thereafter say, we don't trust you.
But if you know the Hebrews did escape from Egypt, what do you do with the sea parting?
I consider that part of the story just a story. Made up. It didn't really happen. That's what I'd do with it.
Why is it not a miracle?
Because if it were a true miracle, then all the people who experienced it wouldn't almost immediately start doubting Moses.
I think it shows the fickleness of human nature to not trust God right after he's done this.
Oh, people are not that stupid. People are not that stupid. If they actually did experience the sea parting with a wall of water standing up on the left and on the right, they would not have had doubts about Moses' leadership or doubts about this God.
You believe the Hebrews complained about God. You're willing to believe that, but you're not willing to believe the Red Sea parted. You're choosing what part of the story you're willing to believe and what part not.
Well, yeah, based on what part of the story is reasonable and what part is not. If they're stuck in the desert, they have good reason to complain. I can believe that, no problem. But to believe in a major breach of nature, that's different.
But you see what's happening? You're believing, oh yes, they complained, but oh no, the Red Sea did not part.
Right, right. What's wrong with that?
It also says God parted the Red Sea.
That doesn't mean it's true.
But why is it true that they complained?
Because that's not a miracle. It's very understandable. They're stuck in the desert. Human beings will complain. And if Moses is taking forever to get them out of their predicament, complaining is understandable. But when you claim a miracle, that's a very different kind of claim. I think you're using circular reasoning. To you, the account says it's a miracle, it says God intervened, and so that's how you know it was a miracle. But it's all based on accepting a dubious premise to begin with, that this miracle claim actually happened.
But that's the beauty of it, being able to embrace the mystery of miracles. For example, Jesus born of a virgin. Impossible, right? But if you don't have room to believe that, to believe something beyond yourself, something you can't comprehend, you're going to have trouble with everything else. Because we have to be able to believe in things we cannot explain.
Well, I agree that life is ultimately a mystery, but I don't think that means we have to believe in breach of nature miracles. There's a simpler explanation, like it's just a story. I don't think it's virtuous to leap to the claim of mystery or miracle when there are more prosaic explanations. That reminds me of a cartoon, Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin is in grade school and he's just answered the teacher's question about geography. And the teacher says, yes, Calvin, there are some things that God did not intend for man to know, but I'm afraid the capital of North Dakota is not one of them. Calvin was very good at coming up with invalid, self-serving rationalizations, just like Christians.